This is part of my series I've been doing on managing your political anxiety. Of course, the easiest way to manage anxiety is to go do something with it and get it out of your system. So please introduce yourself, Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna. I live in Durham, North Carolina, where I am a native here. And I do an Instagram creator account called Bull City Anna, which started out of me starting this Indivisible group. That part sort of came into be a little bit more than the Indivisible group, but it all started um, in November of 2020. I am not new to organizing, so I've done organizing work for a really long time. My parents are big Democrats. I remember when I was little, hosting fundraisers for like Harvey Gantt, going to marches as a kid, going to Reverend Barber's Moral Mondays back in the early 2010s. Doing stuff in college. I'm a pediatrician in my day job. So um, when I was in residency, I was like in the hospital trying to register voters for like the 2018 election. Um, and I did a lot of voter registration work before the 2020 election. My mom and her sort of unofficial Indivisible group here in Durham, we would get together Wednesdays and Sundays afternoons to register voters. And we registered about 500 voters in a 3-month period. Just this like group of people going out and doing that. And after the election in 2020, and there was this huge coalition of people after this election in 2020 or 2024, sorry, when Trump won, I just saw her and all of her friends and all of the people of this generation that have been organizing for so long and doing this work for so long. They were just like,
Yeah, exactly.
and I was like, all right, I think it's time to like take on those leadership roles and bring in this and harness this energy that we had after so many people got involved, and try and get folks our age involved as well.
Mhm.
And so I started the Indivisible group because of that.
I love that because I talk a lot about like getting involved in your local DNC or whatever. But if at any point that you want to insert yourself into activism, into orgs that already exist, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be run by a boomer woman. And then I don't boomer is not a slur. I'm saying of that generation,
Yeah.
because they've been activists for their whole adult life, like that. They're hippies, right? Like they were introduced to adulthood via political awareness. And that has just, like, not been the case for our generation. We were introduced to adulthood with, like, Obama, which felt like,
Mm-hmm.
"This is
Mm-hmm.
great, I got it." Like, you know? And
Yeah.
and so they will be so happy to have you if you go to get involved in pretty much anything because they've been doing this and carrying this load by themselves, especially Black women, since the dawn
Mm-hmm.
of time.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so how did you get it let me start over. What is the deal with Indivisible? Like, what is the structure? Because it seems very disparate and unconnected.
Yeah. So Indivisible is an organization that was started in 2016 after Trump's election by two former, I believe they were former Obama staffers, Leah Greenberg and Ezra Levin. And there were all these groups sort of cropping up to try and do the work. And they were like, okay, we have all of these things about how to do it. So they wrote this guide and it was just distributed all over the country.
Mhm.
The indivisible groups fought back really hard during Trump won. They were one of the huge reasons that the Affordable Care Act did not go under because they were people that were fighting back in these senators and representative hometowns, being like showing up. There was a group that you'll hear more about called Tuesdays with Tillis, Democracy Out Loud, which is one of our other indivisible groups here, that would go and march around Tillis's office every Tuesday and be like, yeah, you like are going to be responsible if you vote against our health care. So they would like cause a ruckus. They would drive calls to senators. They would drive things to offices, basically let people know who is accountable for these votes. And so ultimately, a lot of that work helped keep the Affordable Care Act active. And I think it didn't, one of the big mistakes we often make as liberals, progressives, is that I don't think, we work so hard when everything is so terrible. And then as soon as we get power, there's a little bit of easing off of
Yeah.
the pressure. And definitely there were still people doing the work during Biden's term, and especially at state level politics as well. But then when Trump got elected again, Indivisible already had this structure. Within a week of Trump's election, there was a huge mass call with Indivisible. They had an enormous guide of how to make a group, what to do with your group, what to talk about at the first meeting, um, how who we need to pressure, how we need to pressure them, what we need to do, what's different than Trump's first turn. So they basically had this whole rubric and guide set up. So it was a really easy thing to use to start this group. Um, they have resources, like I was able to get a Mobilize for people to sign up for events.
Nice.
I was able to you can get an Act Blue to raise money for your group, so you can like do things with them. And various things like that. So there's like a lot of resources available to make that organizing happen. The other nice thing is there is Indivisible National, and then there's also regional Indivisible groups. So one of my favorite things this past year is we have our Indivisible leadership calls once a month with Indivisible groups across the state of North Carolina. And so, I'm in my little blue bubble here in Durham, but there's like amazing groups organizing in Brunswick County or in the West and in the high country, and hearing what some of those groups are doing and like how can we support them, and then sort of all working together across the state.
So would you say that starting a chapter, if you're a blue dot in a red county, which I know many folks are, it's not a heavy lift? Like the
No, I mean, and I think indivisible groups can be so many different things. Indivisible groups, you're going to take action. Some groups are going to be teeny, some groups are going to be massive. Like Indivisible Charlotte is
Mm.
huge. Here in the Triangle area, we have a ton of different groups. We have like Cary, we have two different groups in Durham that sort of do different things. One of them, it's like our sister group. They focus more on protests, whereas we're doing some of the other stuff, which we can get into soon. And then there's a group in that's that Tuesdays with Tillis group that now meets virtually on Tuesdays. Um,
Not with Tillis.
Not with Telus, but they do a lot of like legislative work and other things. And so, there are Indivisible also has rural groups, rural caucus groups. So like if you are a teeny blue dot and you want to be part of a bigger group, you can do that. But you can, if there isn't an Indivisible group in your area, which there are so many, so there might well be, Indivisible, the website actually has a map where you can go on and see if there's groups in your area. So you can like look by your zip code and go check and see if there's one near you. I'll sometimes get people who email me and they're like, "Oh, I want to join. I found you on like the find a group section." But it's very easy to just start one, and they have like ways to do it.
So what do y'all do all day? I mean, you have a job, so
Yeah,
obviously
I have a job.
I
And
think
that was one reason I started this group is I was like, you know, this other group that meets virtually Tuesdays at 11 a.m. I was like, I'm a parent.
Yeah,
I work full time. I cannot do that. And
yeah.
so my goals for our Indivisible group was what is a way that I can create community, have people learn to um, take action, and also it's at a place where like you want to go. You can bring your kids
Mm.
and it's at a time then people can go. So we meet Sundays from 3 to 4:30 we often meet at this like restaurant in Durham that's very kid friendly. There's like a area in the corner where kids can play. People can like grab a beer, grab some food, hang out. So it's very social. And then at those meetings, we do all sorts of different things. So we've done everything from book clubs. We've read like Emily Amick's Democracy in Retrograde, which I happen to have on my desk. It's a phenomenal read. Um, we sort of started there. We've read On Tyranny and talked about
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Our next meeting, we're talking about Stacey Abrams' documentary All In about voting rights. We've also had a lot of at our meetings. One of my goals when I started the group, and I'll back up a little bit, is like you said at the beginning, there's so many groups already doing the work, and there may not be in your area, but usually there are either statewide, either a local Democratic Party or other groups doing the work. So in North Carolina, there are so many groups. Down Home is an amazing group doing rural organizing. Flip NC does a lot of judicial work, which is super important here. Um, and so I was like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to start a new group, but teach that group about how to hook into these other groups and how to take action. So, like, we had one of our groups that does canvassing in elections where the margin of effort matters. And I'll talk about that in a sec. But we did like canvassing training and talking about how to canvass. We've done like how to call your senators and role playing so that people feel more comfortable in like what it's like and pretending like you're the
Yeah.
staffer and you're the person. So people would pretend to do that. We did voter registration training. And then we've also had politicians come and talk with us as well. We've had a lot of our state representatives. We've had a former mayor come and talk about like what the mayor can actually do, which is very different in North Carolina compared to, say, New York,
Yeah.
because of something called the Dillon Rule. um, and we've done some volunteer work as well. So we've done really a huge spectrum of stuff. But the important thing is we're in community with each other. And then we're also a group where we can galvanize quickly into actions when we need those rapid response. Like everybody needs to show up at the legislature, as many people as possible, because they're trying to pass this crazy bill. So
Mm.
let's all show up and pack the gallery since we are so close to the Capitol.
So if there's like a order of, I'm thinking like a flow chart. If you're looking for somewhere to plug in, see if you have an indivisible near you.
Hmm.
And that could be doing any number of things, protesting,
Hmm.
voter registration, whatever. If not, you can start one. There's a toolkit. And then you still kind of want to plug in to stuff that's already happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense. So what is the margin of effort? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So the margin of effort, I love this term. This is a term that one of our local organizations uses. And it's idea that there are races where they're so close that are within what we call the margin of effort. So if you knock enough doors, your effort could be the difference in that win.
Mm,
So one example I'll talk about is, since everybody has been talking about Don Davis in North Carolina right now in the first district, you know, everybody's like, he just voted against, which of course I disagree with. However, the filing deadline is closed.
yeah.
We cannot primary him in this race. Filing deadline's closed. However, if you really want to support a Black Democrat in Eastern North Carolina who is in a primary with a guy who's a Democrat in name only who votes with Republicans all the time, there is a state representative called Rodney Pierce who won his primary election in 2024 by 34 votes.
Oh.
That is a race that I would say is in the margin of effort.
Yeah.
And so, if you go out and you knock, canvas 2 or 3 times, you might knock 34 doors. And we know from data that canvassing works for voter turnout, especially with those down ballot races, and people may not know the difference.
We
Um,
had a race here. I think it was 2020. It might have been 2016, but I think it was 2020. It was a local, like a House of Delegates seat that ended up tied, and they
mhm,
literally drew a name out of a hat.
mhm.
'Cause that's what
There are
happens.
coin flips in
Yeah,
North
that's what
Carolina.
happens in our
I think
state.
there were 34 races in 2025 in North Carolina, either 16 or 34. I don't know, some number like that were decided by one voter across the state. So, like, we're a true purple state. And so, actually getting out that margin of effort, it's like if you do the work, you can make a difference. And so often people feel like, I can't make a difference. Everything is too big.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can. You really can. And we've shown that these teeny, teeny numbers of votes can actually make a difference.
And those are local races, local.
Mhm. Those are local races. Although,
Yeah.
what I'll say too is we had a big statewide race here in 2024 that people heard about nationwide. Um, the Alison Riggs was our Supreme Court justice. So in North Carolina, the reason that Democrats have a minority in the House of Representatives right now is because of North Carolina. So in 2022, we had we had a Democratic majority on the North Carolina Supreme Court. And they said partisan gerrymandering is illegal. You have to have fair maps. And so we sent 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans to the state house, sorry, to the U.S. House,
Congress, yeah.
U.S. Congress in 2022. We also lost the Supreme Court that year to Republicans. And in January of 2023, they came in and they just said, with no prompting, we're going to rehear that case. And actually, partisan gerrymandering is fine. So you can go ahead and draw new maps, mid-decade redistricting. So they did. And we went from 7-7 to 10-4. 3 seats. There is the difference in the House is those 3 seats because of North Carolina's Supreme Court. And of course, now they have stolen another one to make it 11-3. So we can get that back in North Carolina. And I think Amanda Littman just put up a video today about the projected redistricting in 2030 and how North Carolina and other states in the South are set to gain electoral seats, congressional seats. And so the future really has to run through the South. And our end game with many of our indivisible groups across the state is getting a majority on the Supreme Court in North Carolina. That's electing Anita Earls this year in 2026, which everybody's going to say Roy Cooper, who's great. We have to elect him. But Anita Earls' race is the most important race in North Carolina in 2026. Because if we elect her in 2026 and at least 2 Dems to the court in 2028, we get to draw fair maps for 2030 redistricting, which means we can get House seats.
Yeah.
Which Dems can't win without.
How do you keep yourself okay? I'm articulating. It's coming. So I feel like Virginia is like one step ahead of North Carolina.
Absolutely.
Used to be a red state, pretty solid. Where I would actually call Virginia a purple state now, though at this moment we are definitely not. But like in the past several years, it's been fairly purple. And that's for a lot of reasons, a lot of population changes, which North Carolina is experiencing right now. And yeah, so I think we're like a step ahead. And looking back at the political situation in this state 10 years ago, I felt very like, it's just, I don't even know what to do. Like, how do you stop yourself from feeling kind of, I don't want to say hopeless, but like burnt out or like, God, this never ends when you're a blue dot in a red state, or if you're in a purple state that's been redistricted to hell, where like
Oh my
Republicans
gosh.
eating. And in the South, that's usually the case, right? Like, people think of the South as this like ass backwards place politically, and certainly there are ass backwards people here. But the biggest populations of Black voters are in the South. Like,
and we've
so suppressed and redistributed almost. So with all of that, like, what keeps you moving in organizing and activism in the face of all of that over time?
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And, we are lucky to have a really good state party chair, Anderson Clayton, she just turned 28. I mean, she's amazing. She's like, Project 2025 has been in North Carolina for a long time.
Yeah, it's true.
So, we're used to fighting back. We've done this for a long time. And what gives me hope is, even in 2024, when we lost the election, we elected a Democratic governor. We flipped 2 statewide seats from red to blue in 2024, and we broke our supermajority. And so that gives me hope, is that people have been fighting here a long time, and I'm not willing to give up on the South. I mean, I think with the Anita Earls stuff, with the court majority, it feels like it's like 5 years is not that long. I mean, it's a long time, but like that 5-year plan to 2030, it's not like 20, 30 years. It's like
Mhm.
it feels like this tangible thing we can actually do. Um, and when you see those differences you make, I mean, Allison Riggs, who was our Supreme Court justice we just elected in 2024, um, Jefferson Griffin tried to steal her seat. They tried to throw out 60,000 votes. But on election night, she was actually behind.
Mm.
And North Carolina has enacted these racist voter ID laws. And so we had a lot more provisional ballots. And what you have to do with provisional ballots after the election is they have to bring their ID to the Board of Elections. So I was part of an effort to help cure those ballots. We cured 1,000 ballots across the state, and she won by 734. So we cured more ballots than
Yeah.
she won by. And, the Republican supermajority immediately after that came in and shortened the ballot curing period to 3 days instead of 10 because they saw what we did. So it definitely feels like, I joke that game of like Mario when all of the things are like spinning and it's like you're trying to get around all those traps. That's what it feels like with voter suppression here. We know that we have to turn out in huge numbers to overcome those things.
Mhm.
So sometimes it can feel pretty soul crushing. Um, you know, Bob Rucho from Rucho versus Common Cause is on our state board of elections right now.
Oh.
Yeah, Republicans stole control of our state board of elections with their supermajority in 2024. And they put people on there like Dallas Woodhouse, who was in the North Carolina Republican Party when there was all this issues with trying to steal an election, and Bob Rucho is on it. He actually fell asleep in a meeting. You would love this video. He's like sitting there in the Board of Elections meeting, and everybody's like,
Well,
Bob,
there
Bob, and he's
well, I think the takeaway for me in that is, like, if you're in a state that's heavily controlled by Republicans who like to use procedural cheats functionally,
Mhm,
voter suppression, gerrymandering, all of these any tool that they can use to win, they will use. And I think in the South especially that this is a tangent, but I think that has a lot to do with, like, the religiosity of the Republican
mhm,
Party here, like, I talk about this a lot, but Republicans have been working to take over state houses since the '70s. So it's been a
mhm.
50-year effort. And a lot of them know that it's a fight that they will maybe not live to see the end of. Like it's a holy war to them.
Yes,
Because it is this
yes,
religious war for the soul of the South. They're willing to fight literally to death until they are dead.
mhm,
And liberals tend to not be that way. We don't
right,
because we're not in a cult. So, like, we don't whether we're religious or not, like, we don't have that this political fight is like this, I don't know, like, God's gonna punish me if I don't cheat in this
mhm,
election. But anyway, all that to say, if you're a blue dot in a red state, the best way to get it you have to get so granular, like, you have to get so local, you have to get so involved in these
mhm.
little efforts to cure ballots, like, that's something that I think that most people that would never occur to them to do.
Right, and it can make such a difference. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to bring up tonight, I hear a lot of people saying they're going to send the National Guard after us in for the elections, and they're going to come after us on election day. Yeah, they
Get one.
might.
Yeah.
And in 2020 in Alamance County, there was a group of Black Lives Matter organizers who did a march to the polls. There were children there were organizers. They kneeled to a part of it to sort of for the amount of time that the officers had their knee on George Floyd's neck. They were doing this piece of activism to march to the polls. And the police in Graham came out and pepper sprayed them, and with children there. This was in 2020. And, you can see them wearing their masks and they're pepper spraying the crowd. And we flipped that House seat in
Yes.
2020. They then drew Ricky Hurtado, who was the first, the first Latino representative in North Carolina. They drew him out of his seat in the next map redrawing because they were so mad we won. Um, but we won, and we elected Joe Biden that year. So and I think that's something that gives me hope too. This is something you talk a lot about in your work, is history,
Mhm.
is knowing that these things have happened before. So they kind of like, I've seen that before. It doesn't scare me.
They have no
Um,
new tricks also.
there's no new tricks.
It's all
Exactly.
the
There's
same.
no new tricks. Okay, you're gonna show up and try and intimidate us at the polls. You've been doing that. You've
Right.
been taking, they just took the largest HBCU in the country. They just took early voting away from there in North Carolina because they don't want young Black people to vote.
Mhm.
Um, it, so
I think I said today, maybe it was yesterday. Time has no meaning right now. I'm snowed in, so, like, I don't know what day it is. That, like, every member of this administration is Bull Connor, and we are all Birmingham, the
yeah.
entire country now. And that's something about the, like, "Oh god, what if they send ICE to the polls" thing that irritates me a little bit, is, like, then you get to know what it's like to be Black in America.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and that's, like, it's not good, but also suck it up, buttercup. Like, you're gonna have to make a choice now that you're gonna walk past them into the building.
Yeah.
Fingers up, just
And
like
like,
people have had to do since time immemorial here.
exactly, and that's one of the reasons I started the Indivisible group, and I think that Indivisible is really helpful, is to get people ways to hook in locally. So when you hear people saying like, "Oh my god, I don't know what to do. All these terrible things are happening," it's like, okay, here's what you do. Like
Mhm.
with the Don Davis thing. Okay, you're freaking out about Don Davis. Let's direct you over to Rodney Pierce and Radley Sadler and Valeria Levy, who are in these critical primaries in North Carolina.
Mhm.
Um, if you're worried about gerrymandering and mad about that, here's what you do to elect Anita Earls. And so every time you hear a freak out, you have something to do and you have a local action you can take. You can make a difference.
Mhm.
And that Graham, that city where they sprayed the protesters, just elected its first Democratic mayor, who's millennial mom. I mean, it's like you see things happening, and there is hope if you look locally.
Yeah. Alright, well, I think we're at time. If anyone has questions, you can drop them in. We'll, hang out for another minute or 2. If you wanna quiz Anna about how to start an Indivisible, I mean, she told you. Is it just indivisible.com? Like, where's the
Yeah, indivisible.org, I believe. And then they have every Thursday afternoon. Ezra and Leah are awesome. They are super, super smart. They have What's the Plan um, every Thursday. It's like in the middle of the day, but they record them. Um, so it's like a space to ask questions and stuff. Indivisible is also, I didn't talk that much about like protesting and marches and stuff, but Indivisible is one of the big partners with Working Families Party and all of those other things on doing some of the big protests. So we also have done a lot of those big events as well.
they do the No Kings marches?
Hmm.
Yeah,
We
cool.
did all the No Kings. We did an empty chair town hall at the beginning of the year. That was real fun. Somebody brought a crocheted chicken to serve as Tom Tillis, which was
Oh,
really
I love that.
great.
Thank you, Mindy. Mindy dropped the link there. Alright, I will let y'all go. If you have where can people find you?
So you can find me on social media if you want to learn about North Carolina politics, calls to action, what's going on locally, who to follow at Bull City Anna. And then this, I think it's showing live as our Substack as Bull City Indivisible is our Substack where we send out emails with action items. And then if you are local in Durham, come join us. Our next meeting is not this coming Sunday, but the one after. We're doing our AV club for the Stacey Abrams All In documentary.
Cool. Someone's asking, is Indivisible involved in the efforts to prove or challenge the 2024 election? I don't think so. No.
I don't, yeah,
That's like what's the Election Truth Alliance, I think are the folks who are
yeah.
working on that. I am not a person who thinks the election was stolen,
Nope.
just for the
I don't either.
record. But if
Um,
you do, that's where you should go.
Republicans did try to steal an election in 2024, and that was Allison Riggs' election
Ha!
that she won. And this is what I love to do is be like, all right, let's bring it back to so yeah. Our Indivisible group was involved in making sure that they did not steal that election.
Whew. All right. On that note, let's talk to you later. Bye.
All right, bye.